I know. It's crazy. But it's got this incredible reactive property, and you think, well, that's not going to be pink. It will. When it dries, you'll see that it has that nice little kind of pink hue, that little haze to it. You see that soft, worn lipstick layer over that spice marmalade. And really, how cool is that for a layer? And I'll show you just a color. I'll just take, before I mix it with Distress ink, because we can blend with this, stencil with this, do all of those things, but even if you had a single color, just to kind of understand it. If you take oxide and you put this on a surface, if you spray it and we dry it, it's going to oxidize. Okay, that we know. But the more water you add, the more you're going to see that dye and pigment separate. So there's my first oxidized layer, right? You can see that it's oxidized. I'm just going to keep going. The more water, the more the dye and the pigment want to get away from each other. And also the more it's going to oxidize. If I drip water, same thing. Because we're dealing with the dye and pigment, everything we know about that dye wanting to get away from each other is going to do that. And that wicking nature, it'll just continue to do it the more water you add. That's a single color. That's what's crazy to me, because once you start adding all that water, now you're getting like tones of aged mahogany and fired brick and a little orange from barn door and all of that, but I don't know, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's our surface. So let's talk about, we just did an oxide background. So what happens if we take oxides and mix them with Distress ink? Well, what's neat about that, because anytime there's a new toy, don't forget the toy box, people. Right? You know, it's like a kid, right? We have a new toy. It's like, we have a whole toy box over here. Like, don't forget that. When we work with Distress ink, the Distress inks are dyes, so that means that dye ink is going to be super concentrated. It's going to have a lot of pack to your background. It's really going to impact what colors are going to be visible. So here I'm doing a little Mermaid Lagoon. There's a little pine needles, and let's throw in some purple. Do like a kind of a bold, maybe some seedless preserves. All right. I'm going to throw in some other colors of oxide, and I'll put some oxides on the outer edge just a little bit, so we can see where we are with this. Of course, we have to throw in some brown. Brown is going to be important for me. And maybe we'll do a little bit of ice spruce. All right. And I think that's a good start. So I'm just going to spray this with water. I just kind of did it this way just so you kind of remember where everything is. Dyes are here, oxides are here. It doesn't really matter how you do it on your craft sheet, but it's important to understand what's going to happen with our different properties. So I'm going to do my first layer, just like before. Even if you don't like it, you get what you get. You don't throw a fit, you just do it, right? Because this is where everyone will be like, oh, I missed a spot, I need to go back in. No, you don't, not right now. You'll go there. Because everything will turn to mud. Yeah, it's a tough thing. Yeah, especially when you're in the privacy of your own craft room. You're like, no one's watching. I'm just gonna.
Somebody's there to say no, no.
Tim's not there. He won't know. Yeah. And here I'm just gonna start layering. What you're gonna notice as we start to build this layer is those dye colors, that pine needles, seedless preserves, Mermaid Lagoon, that purple and blue, that's always going to start coming up, even though I start layering more and more oxides over the top. It's still gonna oxidize because I have that oxide, but the color value is really going to be what I want it to be, and I like that. I like that ability that if I was doing a background and I wanted to make sure that when it was done, even though it had an oxidized effect, that it would have kind of the color palette that I was going for. I think that's really key. So, just gonna keep going back in here, adding a little bit more brown. There we go. And again, just a little bit of water. That's what I love about mixed media heavy stock. I mean, look how much water I just keep throwing on this paper, and it's just hanging out. It has a slight bend to it, but nothing like when you're working with a manila tag that just like, yeah. Pretty cool.
So by mixing the two, you're getting that little bit of a soft, chalky look, but then you're also seeing the
pow, the real impact color, right? You're seeing that. Again, the seedless preserves, the Mermaid Lagoon. See, when I went back into my dye, see those really intense little bits of color? Very different than if it was just all oxide, because all oxide is very, very soft.
Right.
But by combining some Distress ink, you're getting those little punches of color.
Yeah.
Yeah. just really pops up, which I think is great. And I can still go into wherever I have the oxide, like I can put a little cracked pistachio over those things, right? Or maybe a little broken china, okay? Just a little bit of that. So cool.
I think I needed this, and now I absolutely
Yeah, you know you have to have it.
I mean, seriously, I said it. It's a game changer. It is. For those that love Distress ink, I mean, let's face it, in Distress, if you're using a lot of Distress, there's a lot of people that they're happy with their ink pads and reinkers. They've never bought a marker or a spray stain, anything, because you can kind of make that stuff. If you know, you can take your reinkers, put it in a bottle, spray it. You can take your reinkers, use a water brush, watercolor with it. So there are a lot of factors, but there's really no way to replicate this effect. Even if you're like, oh, I'm going to take picket fence and all that. Well, you go right ahead. Let me know how that worked for you. Don't think I haven't tried that one. Yeah, it just makes white. So here I'm just going to go in, just add a little bit of that marmalade. Because again, having that ability to just